This is usually the part where people get uncomfortable, because explanation feels like the responsible thing to do. If something is complex, you explain it. If something is sensitive, you explain it. If money or security or compliance is involved, you explain it. So when growth slows down, explanation is the first instinct, and most of the time it's coming from a good place. Teams say things like, people don't understand how this works, we need to clarify the process, let's walk them through step by step. All of that sounds reasonable, and here's the uncomfortable truth. Most fintech teams over-explain, not because they are careless, but because they are conscientious. The problem isn't explanation itself. The problem is when explanation shows up. Explanation is cognitively expensive. It demands focus, it demands attention and effort. And effort under uncertainty still feels like risk. So when explanation arrives too early, it doesn't create clarity, it creates weight. You can usually feel this as a user. You land on a page, you start reading, and after a few sentences you realize, oh, this is going to take a work. Not because it's badly written, but because it's confusing, just because it's a lot. That moment is where explanation starts backfiring. I like to think of this as a cognitive debt. Every explanation asks to borrow attention from the future. You're saying, spend mental energy now, it will pay off later. Sometimes that's fine, but early in a fintech decision, users haven't agreed to take on debt yet, so the interest rate feels high. This shows up constantly in fintech messaging. Pages that start with architecture, workflows, security processes, regulatory positioning, all important or correct, but all asking the same thing: trust us enough to work hard right now. And many users simply aren't there yet. This is where one distinction changes everything. Meaning before mechanics. Meaning answers, why does this exist? Why should I care right now? What problem does this remove from my life? Mechanics answered how it works, what happens under the hood, what steps are involved. Mechanics without meaning feel like a labor. Meaning lower the cost of understanding. Think about someone explaining a complex process to you. If they start with, let me walk you through every step, you brace yourself. If they start with, here is why this matters and why it's simpler than it looks, you will relax. Some information, different order, massively different experience. Most fintech teams don't separate these two. They explain how before the user has decided why, and they assume that accuracy will compensate for effort. It rarely does. This showed up very clearly with K0, a fintech SaaS company offering passwordless authentication, strong products, serious buyers, technically impressive. But early conversions kept getting stuck. Sales calls ran wrong, explanation took over, deals didn't collapse, they just lingered. But change here is important. They didn't remove explanation, they delayed it. The early message stopped trying to educate, it focused on meaning, on relevance, on why this approach exists, on what friction it removes. Once they landed, explanation stopped feeling heavy, because the user was finally ready for it. This is what we would call the engagement threshold. Below it, explanation feels like pressure. Above it, explanation feels helpful. Most teams keep adding explanation instead of helping users cross that threshold. Here's something you can actually use. When you look at any explanation in your messaging, ask two questions. Does this help the users decide why they should care? Or does this assume that they already care? If it's the second, it probably doesn't belong early. It's not a copy issue, it's sequencing. One reason teams lean on explanation is that it feels defensible. No one gets fired for explaining too much, but over time, explanation creates a cognitive debt. Users keep postponing the decision because the cost of understanding never quite drops. This is not about dumbing things down. Complex products require explanation, of course, but explanation should arrive when it reduces risk, not when it introduces effort. That's the difference. This is also where solutions start to become visible, not as template, not as scripts, but as judgment. Knowing when to delete explanation, remove mechanics, reframe meaning, and let things wait. That judgment is what changing outcomes. In the next video, we're going to talk about trust. Not trust as branding, not trust as vibes, but trust as function. When it works, when it does nothing, and why adding trust elements too early often fail for the same reason explanation does. That's where we're going next.